what was here all along. It was hiding underneath my Bible. So I'm going to be turning around a lot, and this is something that's always on my heart, and I think it needs to be on the hearts of all of us Christians all the time. This is not something that should come and go. As a church, as a body of believers, we need to always be thinking about how do we reach the unchurched. Let's first define the unchurched. The unchurched is exactly that. There are people who are not churched, but those definitions seem to be kind of shifting. Before, the unchurched was kind of viewed as people who have zero church background, right? They have no background at church whatsoever. How many of us know people who have zero church background at all? Probably all of us, right? Those are unchurched people. There's a new study, new research that came out, and this is by the source here. You'll see it in the link there, churchanswers.com. This is a blog by Sam Rainer, who's Tom Rainer's son. Tom Rainer's the one who started Church Answers. He's a statistician. He's done a lot of good research over the years. He's a consultant with churches. He really has his finger on the pulse of what's going on in the churches in America. So his son, Sam, wrote this article, and I thought it was absolutely fascinating what the research says. I actually was surprised at some of this. So we're going to walk through this and look at some scriptures and really get our finger on the pulse of what's going on with the unchurched here in America. All right, so here's a question. Can our church still grow? What do y'all think? By the way, I have a microphone here, so if anybody wants to be a mic runner and run this to people who have comments, that would be helpful. Dakota looks like Sophie. So you see how it's orange? That means that it's on mute. So you give it a quick press and it turns green. And they'll have it muted back there anyway, but so you can just leave it on green if you want. But here's a question. Do we believe this? Can our church still grow? Jacob's shaking his head yes. He's saying yes. You want to elaborate on that, or is that just let your yes be yes and your no be no?
I can't elaborate. I mean, it's up to us, just like it says many places in the Bible, like we are to spread the church and cheer. So can the church still grow? Absolutely, because there's still people to be reached and still people that we need to come in contact with to even know what the church is to grow and be part of it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, and I think we see plenty of examples, and I talk about this all the time. There are two different things going on, and it's kind of a paradox in America right now. The organized churches, like this is considered organized religion, right? It's the brick and mortar, the four walls. These churches in America are closing their doors at unprecedented rates in the history of America. Since the founding of this nation, churches are closing their doors at unprecedented rates. At the same time, there's a movement where those people who are now considered the unchurched, right? We used to think, and that's what, we'll look at this in the research, the unchurched used to mean people who don't have any church background whatsoever. That definition has shifted now, where the unchurched are now people who have lots of church background who have no home. They're kind of Israelites in the wilderness. They have no place to call home. So while churches are closing their doors, house churches are taking off like wild. I mean, it's unstoppable. I actually just on Thursday was texted by a good friend of mine, Feege, who I went to college with. He was an Apache pilot in the Army, and he started a house church. And it is absolutely just growing by leaps and bounds. It's the size of this congregation, and it meets in their home. They have anywhere from 40 to 60 people easily. They're flirting with the idea of like moving to another location or splitting the church to keep that growth going. But he texted me on Thursday and he's like, hey, I have this sermon and I just want to run it by you. He's like, you're the professional. And I'm not. But he has no background, no Bible background, formal Bible training, and he's leading a church, and they're growing by leaps and bounds, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And the other thing is, his sermon was incredible. He was looking at things that I would never even dream of looking at, and that's the cool thing about vocational ministry. It's lay people going into ministry, which I think is the most biblical example. Who did Jesus pick? Who were the 12 apostles? What was their background? Yeah, fishermen. And that's one of the things. You remember the day of Pentecost? Everybody, they're speaking in tongues, and everybody's hearing the sermon in their own language, and they're confused. What was their response? What did the people say when they heard the sermons in their own language? Yeah, well, the first response, these people they're hammered, right? They're drunk. But then they said, these are uneducated men. How can this be? And that was the response everywhere they went. So this is happening right now in America. It's the uneducated, people who are they don't have formal Bible training. They're the ones leading the churches, and they're growing by leaps and bounds. So yeah, the answer is yes. New research gives us surprising hope, confirming what the Bible has promised all along. I love that. The Bible has not changed in thousands of years. Here's our foundation. This is kind of interesting. Some of you have heard me talk about this before. The word Peter, what was Peter's real name? It wasn't Peter. What was his? Yeah, Simon. Peter was a nickname. People are given friendly nicknames all the time. Peter in Greek is Petros, and it means like a small rock. So whenever we pick up rocks at the beach, we say, hey, we're going to comb the beach and pick up rocks. Nobody in our mind imagines like people going and picking up boulders and like hooking a pickup truck to these boulders and dragging them across the beach, right? We all know when we're picking up rocks, we all picture things no bigger than that. That's Petros. There was another Greek word for rock which meant boulder, a big boulder, and that's Petra. It's subtle, same root, but Peter was Petros and big rock was Petra. So Jesus says, and I tell you, Peter, Petros, little rock, on this Petra, on this boulder, I will build my church. Now, I envision Jesus when he said that, pointed at Peter, right? Now, I tell you, Petros, I tell you, little rock, that on this rock, on me, on my foundation, will the church be built. And we know this because often Jesus says, and the scriptures say, that Jesus is the cornerstone, right? He's the foundational stone of the church. So he's saying, all right, Petros, little rock, on this big boulder, the church is going to be built, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. In other words, nothing will stop the growth of the church. It's got a solid foundation. Nothing can stop it. Even the gates of Hades cannot prevail against it. All right, so finding number one, this is what Sam says in the article, in that blog post. Here's the first finding. The dechurched is a more descriptive thing of what happened in the church than unchurched. It's the dechurched, people who once went to church, but they don't anymore. So the perception is, we often think of the unchurched as people who have never been to church and have no context for faith, but the reality is, research shows 60% of unchurched individuals attended church regularly as children. 60%. And didn't just attend, they attended, what's the key word? Regularly. That means that in any given congregation, you take a random sample of any congregation, 60% of the people will leave and never come back. Think about that for a minute. Would you say we do a good job of retaining people in the church? Not at all. I don't know if any of you have gotten a 60% on a test before, but do you come home with a 60%? And you're like, man, DP, he's like raising both hands back there. Does anybody come home and they like pull that out and they're like, hey, mom and dad, look at what I accomplished. You'll never guess what grade they hide it behind. You'll never guess what grade I got. No, what'd you get? Let me see it. They're like dusting off their fingernails. I got a 60%. I'm like the shining star, right? Nobody brags about 60%. We have 60% of unchurched individuals attended church regularly as children. That's terrible. They are former attendees, not strangers. So what does that mean? What do they think about church? This is kind of an interesting finding too. The research shows a fascinating divide. This is our biggest hurdle and our biggest opportunity. So picture a hurdle. How many of you do like hurdle racing? Some of you are track. Do you do hurdles? Anybody do hurdles? Xander, have you done hurdles? Okay, pole vault. So that's kind of a hurdle. Do you, Sophie? You ever do hurdles? All right, so pole vaulting. You have a hurdle, and what's the idea behind that? Keep it small, keep it low.
No, you want to jump really high.
Yeah, you keep raising it. You keep raising the bar. So the goal is there's this hurdle, and you keep raising it, but you don't raise it to fail. You raise it to accomplish more. So it's kind of a paradox because it's kind of this big divide, right? It's our biggest hurdle, yet it's our biggest opportunity at the same time. It's our opportunity to shine. And here's what it is. So the unchurched say this. Keep in mind, 60% of them were regular attenders as children. The unchurched are saying the church is relevant. In other words, the Somerset Church of Christ is very relevant in the community of Somerset. That's what they're saying about us right now. The church is relevant, but I don't trust it. I'm taking a step back. I'm taking time. I don't trust the church. I don't really know where they are, where they're going, but it's still relevant, right? It's relevant in the community. It's relevant. I want it to have relevance in my life. That's what the unchurched are saying. Here's what the churched are saying. We, us, people who are currently members of churches, here's what we're saying. I trust my church, but I think it's irrelevant to others. That one actually hurts a little bit. When I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so true. And we may not think, and we might be like, yeah, not me. But what do our practices, how do those unfold? Do we just walk into the lives of other people and we say, not only my congregation, but my Jesus has so much relevance that you are literally starving your soul without coming with me on Sunday. You are starving your soul. That's typically not our attitude. We're very nonchalant about worship ourselves. You can see it on our board. You'll watch that number go from 21 week to 60 another week, right? It's like kind of come and go. And I know we all have reasons, but that's very typical. Right now in the United States, the research says that a regular, a regular attender of church is considered somebody who's there 50% of the time. That's considered a regular attender of church, 50% of the time. And you ask the question, why? Well, I'm busy, I have other things going on. I don't think that's the heart of the issue. I think the heart of the issue is we believe in our heart of hearts that the church is not really relevant to other people. And so when we shift the way that we think about Jesus, about the church, and we understand what the unchurched are thinking, you'll see a radical flip. where we say, okay, how do I get the unchurched people? They already think the church is relevant. I don't have to convince them. I don't have to plead with them. I don't have to talk to my friends about how the church is relevant in their life. They already believe that. What I have to do is get them to start trusting the church. That's fascinating to me. So the real reason, here's the myth. We assume that the top reasons that people don't attend are anger. They're angry at the church. They're angry at Christians. Something happened at church that ticked them off, right? Anger, busyness, or a major past negative experience. Here's the reality. Fascinating to me. The reality is the top reasons are indifference. I just got out of the habit. I don't view church as necessary right now. What's driving the indifference? Why are unchurched, thinking about what we just talked about, why did the unchurched people think the church, why are they indifferent towards the church? We don't find it relevant.
50% is a regularly attending person. If I only attend 50% of practices at a sport or 50% of school,
Yeah.
is that going to be considered relevant? Is it going to be considered necessary? Well, no. If I can skip half of it,
Yeah.
we're demonstrating that.
You said it right there. We are demonstrating that the church is irrelevant to other people. When they see that we lack conviction, if we're not convicted, do you think in your wildest dreams that we're going to convince other people to be convicted? It doesn't work that way. Our conviction is what causes other people to be convicted, right? So if we view the church as irrelevant, if we think that the church is irrelevant to other people, they become indifferent. They start to fall off, they fall away, and then we'll say things like, well, they just weren't committed enough. They put sports above church. I don't think that's the heart of the issue. I think the heart of the issue, according to the research, it's not my opinion, it's what the research is saying. The heart of the issue is not that they chose sports over church. It's that they felt that the group of people that they were with every single Sunday, Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, they felt that that group thought that the church was irrelevant to them. And that causes indifference. What was the mission of Jesus? I love this. It's so simple. For the Son of Man came. This is, okay, here, let me do that. I'm going to spaz with this thing. The Son of Man came. I'm drawing an arrow back to here. The whole reason why God in the flesh, the Son of the Father, God in the flesh came to earth for one reason: to seek and to save the lost. Now, what's our position in the church towards the lost? The church isn't really relevant to them. Does that align with Jesus' mission? I mean, it's a rhetorical question. It's obviously no. If we get Jesus' mission, the entire reason why he came to earth 2,000 years ago was to seek, to find, to actively hunt down and to find the lost and to save them. Do we take that approach? Typically not. Not in America. You know, the American churches are typically not bent on this mission. What are some things that we are? Or maybe I should save that for comments. Let me save that for the end. All right, finding number 4. We're gonna blow through these. The hurdle. All right, remember the bar, Xander. We're raising that bar. What is the hurdle? 60% of unchurched people say they feel intimidated. Fascinating to me. They feel intimidated. If they're just indifferent, why don't they just visit? All right, we know that they're indifferent. The unchurched are indifferent, so why not just visit? Well, I got out of the habit. Okay, well then come. Here's why. Because 60% say that churches feel intimidating, and this one also hurt me a little bit in my heart. Churches are intimidating and confusing. They don't know what Christians stand for. We've not made it clear what the church stands for. They're not hostile. The unchurched are not hostile. They're just hesitant. See, we in our minds, we internalize everything. We're like, oh, the unchurched, they hate Christians. They mock Christians. They think Christianity's stupid. They think it's irrelevant. They think it's ridiculous. No, they don't. They actually don't. It's the exact opposite. They think the church is very irrelevant. They're just intimidated and they're scared and they're confused. They don't know why we do what we do. Let me ask this question. How many people have ever visited like a professional sports game of any kind? Almost all of us. Do you know what to expect? I know DP has attended probably at least 2. Do we know what to expect when we purchase that ticket? Yeah, a pirate loss. That's right. When we go to we stand in line, we get frisked or convince them to frisk DP, convince them that he's a threat. When we get through that gate, do we typically know what to expect? 100%. 100%. Why is that? What'd you say, Dave? Because they always lose. Yeah, you know what to expect. No, we know what to expect because they make it clear. And it's not overcomplicated. You don't walk in and you're like, oh my goodness, like this is so confusing. And like, you're walking in circles. On your ticket, what's listed? What are some things? You can shout them out. What are some things? Seat number, thank you. When somebody walks into a church, especially somebody who's unchurched, what do you think is going on in their mind? Where do I sit? Oh my goodness. And they're not just thinking about it, they're panicking. They are panicking inside. Do you know how many times I've had people walk into this building, even this building, I've had people ask it or say it, but the other building that we were there forever, I've had people tell me so many times I've lost count. They're like, I don't want to sit in somebody's seat. And they're not being funny. They're not being silly. They genuinely think that if I sit somewhere, I might sit in somebody's assigned seat. We've not made it clear. And I'm not saying that we print tickets out for guests and tell them where to sit. But, we have a visitor desk, a welcome desk. Part of what we ought to do is physically walk people to a seat or invite them to sit with us. If they've never been here before, they get an invitation, and no exceptions. Every single time we invite them to sit with us. You clear that up. What else is on a ticket?
What game you're at.
Yeah, starting time, what game you're at. All the information is there. Price. There's no guesswork. We pass around a plate for unchurched people. Trust me, there's a big question mark over their head. Do I give? What if the plate passes by me and I don't put anything? Am I going to be judged? If I don't put money in, how much do I put in? It's not clear to the unchurched. Now for us, we're like, yeah, we know because we've been here forever. Give out of the abundance of your heart. God loves a cheerful giver. There's no set amount, right? We all know that, but the unchurched, a lot of them don't. And I could go on and on and on through all these different things. They don't know why we do what we do. But literally, we look at the models where they're growing and growing sports. There's never a shortage of people, except for at PNC Park. Typically, there's not a shortage of people showing up to these games. Look at the Banana Ball. They sell out every single game. There's a 3 million waiting list, 3 million person waiting list just to get a ticket for every game. You can't buy a ticket to a Savannah Banana ball game. You can't just buy a ticket. You're automatically entered into a lottery ticket because there are 3 million people at any given game waiting to get into the stadium. Every seat sells out, every game, no exceptions. Jesse, the owner, says, we just wanted to make it clear. We wanted to get feedback from the fans and give a fan-first experience, and they know exactly what they're getting. At every single game, I've heard them say this countless times, they know exactly what they're getting. The unchurched don't. Yep, Brenda?
One of the confusing things
Sophie.
for a lot of unchurched people is that, I have a big mouth, is that even trying to decide, am I going to go?
It's for the online people.
So I think one of the confusing things is before you even walk in the door, what church are you going to pick? And once you've picked it, you don't know, like, oh, wait, if I pick a Lutheran church, what does that mean?
Yeah.
If I pick the Church of Christ, what does that mean? Wait, these people are going up front for communion. Oh, wait, these people are sitting in their seat. Oh, wait, these people. And there's a lot of expectations and
Yep.
a lot of hesitancy because everybody's doing something different and I don't know why or what they're doing.
Yep, that's
and
right.
what to expect in the service even before I get there. Like,
That's right.
I thought that they were going to do this other thing. Oh, wait, they're doing communion today? I didn't know they were going to do communion today.
The amount of people, too, along with that, the amount of people who I've spoken to who've gone to charismatic churches, and they're like, I walked in and freaked out. Like, people were rolling in the aisles, and they're jumping up and down on the pews, and they're like, people are running up on the stage, and like, these little trees are getting knocked over, and people are speaking in languages that I didn't even know existed, and like, what was that, right? I've heard that from so many people. They don't know what to expect. And when they walk in, it's like, to them, it's utter chaos. And it's scary. People feel intimidated. So what actually works? A personal invitation, the number one reason, hands down, the research says, the number one reason unchurched people visit is a simple, personal invitation from a friend, spouse, or coworker. That's it. It's not rocket science. It's the reason we went, I keep going back to the sports analogy. DP, the reason that we went to the first Pirates game was because he personally invited us and said, hey, why don't you and Cameron and Eden and Isaac come with me, and we'll go together, and that can be their first game. It was a personal invitation. That's it. Not rocket science. The other thing is that a spiritual prompt is needed. It's a desire to grow spiritually or a feeling that God is prompting them to go. Of those 60% of people who once went to church, they're waiting for a prompting from God to go. I had a whole list of people to call before our first Sunday here. I had 3 different people tell me, you wouldn't believe your timing right now. I literally just had a conversation with somebody, and this clearly is God telling me that I need to go. And they were here. They're experiencing this. Our invitation is the key that opens that door. And then, of course, Romans 10, 14, and 15, Paul says, and how can they hear without someone preaching to them? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. And then in 1 Corinthians, Paul says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth, so neither he who plants nor he who waters, listen to this, is anything. We are less important than we think we are. A lot of times churches get very puffed up, and they're like, look at the programs that we built, and look at all these things that we've done, and we have this program and that program, and we have Kids Corner, and we have like on and on and on and on they go. And you know what the unchurched are thinking? I just want Jesus. I don't really care. Like, you're not as important as you think you are. So Paul, who planted the seeds by preaching, Apollos, who followed up with people and nurtured them in their spiritual walk, and God gives the growth, Paul comes back and says, you know what? Those of us who planted and watered, we're nothing. but only God who gives the growth. We're out of time. Maybe next week, if this prompted some things inside of you, we can begin with discussion. But I want to look at some other scriptures and kind of focus in now, zero in on this research. What do we do about it? And by we, I mean literally this group. I don't mean the church across the street or down the road. Us, literally, us, this group. What do we do about this? We now have the knowledge. What do we do with it? Thank you. We're going to break now, and we'll see you in about 15 minutes for worship.